in the family with Kody and Janelle specifically right now, I feel very unsteady. And in all reality, Kody is even being different.
You ever get that feeling that things were just wrong way before cracks started to surface for decades? We were sold this pretty picture. A faith-based family with shared love, free will, and choice. A contemporary plural marriage that pretended to be one. Of unity, not dominance. But here's the kicker. That idealized image wasn't only inaccurate, it was manufactured. What appeared to be a tightly knitted polygamous family turned out to be more of an elaborately set-up deception. And now, after all these years, the truth is slowly coming out bit by bit. In every stressful interview, in every fake smile on that notorious family couch, in every shying glance that conveyed more than words, ever would he guys welcome back. I'm Robyn, this is the StarSpill USA. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and get in the comments. I want to know what you think about this one because today things get real personal. We're lifting the veil of what actually kept the Brown family together and most importantly, what quietly, steadily, and inevitably tore them apart. And no, it wasn't merely a matter of jealousy or lifestyle issues or Christine waking up one morning and deciding she was finished. The seeds for this breakdown were sown right from the beginning because from day one, it was never an even playing field. Let's press rewind. At the heart of it all stood Kody Brown's self-proclaimed leader, navigating a plural household with 4 women each, distinct in background, in need, and in spirit. Christine the nurse, Janelle the practical, realist Meri, the original wife formerly his favorite, and then Robyn the late entry, who somehow over time found herself the undisputed favorite, even though no one ever had the guts to say it aloud. But we did. We all did. Initially, it seemed revolutionary. The Browns opened. Their arms welcomed the cameras and spoke to the world. This is love. This is choice. And this can work. And for a brief moment, people did believe it. They wanted to believe it. But below the surface, there brewed something different. Something very much less wholesome. And then the cracks opened. Not in confessional, but in silence. Not in dispute, but in withdrawal. The way they quit looking at each other, the emotional distance of their older children. Kody's refusal to allow disagreement to treat argument as betrayal. The change wasn't abrupt. It was gradual, systematic, and in the end, devastating. What broke the Browns wasn't one dramatic moment. It was erosion, years of emotional favoritism, years of one wife being protected while the others were left to fend for themselves. Kody demanded loyalty, unwavering, unquestioning, but seldom gave it back. And as his hold grew tighter, the connection between the others grew weaker. Stick around because we're just getting started. In the next segment, we'll dive into the pivotal moments that expose the foundation as fiction and the quiet acts of rebellion that finally tip the scales. Because when a family is built on control disguised as cooperation, collapse isn't a matter of if, but when. Sometimes silence isn't submission. It's survival. In the Brown household, speaking up came with a price. Confronting the dynamic came with a cost. Confrontation meant being identified as problematic. And interestingly enough, only Kody was ever allowed to experience emotion, anger, frustration, authority. So when Christine first quit, when Janelle started asserting herself, and even when Meri refused to take responsibility anymore, it wasn't just that things started falling apart around the house, it lay things bare. This was a breakdown, long and coming. This family had been silently breaking apart for years, shattering behind the scenes while smiling for the cameras, and now their reality is finally ringing. Loud Christine's exit wasn't simply a breaking point, it was breaking the illusion. And here's the kicker. No one was expecting it. Not even Kody. Christine was the glue for years, the one who smiled through the pandemonium, made the cakes, kept the holidays, and held the charade up while emotional distance spread like mold in the crevices. That perpetual smile, however camouflaged the stuff behind it, was a tempest brewing for years, until the day she quit pretending and gathered up Kody's things like yesterday's garbage awaiting on the curb. That day was not spontaneous. It was deliberate. It was freedom. This is the part that cut deepest. Christine didn't leave a broken relationship. She left a system that broke her over and over again. Recall when she explained to Kody she couldn't be in a marriage without intimacy and how he reacted with chilly indifference, as if her need for love and affection was unreasonable. That wasn't neglect. That was a woman discovering her value. Her exit wasn't a meltdown. It was a moment of reckoning. Christine opted for clarity over confusion, peace over proximity, and self-respect over sacrifice. And the actual shockwave, she didn't walk away in a fit of rage. No crying fits, no shouting matches, simply cool determination. After years of being silenced and marginalized, she finally straightened up and declared, "I deserve more than this." And in so doing, she didn't simply leave Kody. She left the whole paradigm that had made her small. That's when the camera cuts to Robyn, eyes wide, her face shocked as if the earth had shifted beneath her. Because in Robyn's precisely constructed reality, Christine's departure wasn't only emotional, it was defiant. It undermined the very system Robyn had come to gain the most from. And Robyn knew deep inside, if Christine could leave, perhaps the others could as well. The control wasn't only slipping, it was coming undone. Let's not forget Robyn had constructed her image on being the obedient one, the peacemaker, the good wife, always presenting herself as the one who just wanted harmony, love, and unity.
I'm sorry, I hope I didn't insult you.
Not at all. It made complete sense. That word
Really?
didn't belong in our world.
When Christine made her play, Robyn didn't react with understanding. She reacted with fear because control only exists when everybody agrees to keep in line. And Christine, she quit playing the game. You could see it plain as day. Christine began radiating. In interviews, smiling more, reuniting with her children. She even seemed younger, lighter, free. Meanwhile, Robyn grew more withdrawn, more bitter, like a queen witnessing her kingdom collapse. Because that's what Christine's departure actually was, the fall. Of a quiet monarchy, Christine was not being. She was not craving revenge. She was simply over it, and in some small way, this was revolutionary. To leave behind something you've been told you're supposed to hold as most sacred, it takes more will than staying. Ever did, and her peace of mind contagious. You might see it awaken something in Janelle. You might sense the fissure develop in Meri and Kody. He began to lose control, not only of the family, but of the narrative, because Christine didn't exit angry. She exited honest. She exited serene. She exited unequivocal, and then all of a sudden the other wives begin to toast themselves, "What if we deserve that too?" And you know what's crazy? For someone who says she dislikes drama, Robyn always happens to be smack in the middle of it every single time. And yet somehow she's always the victim, always the tear-wiping, sobbing mess while the rest of the family crumbles. But for those actually paying attention, not just listening, but looking, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Robyn has perfected something very particular. Emotional manipulation, masquerading as emotional vulnerability. At first glance, it appears to be sadness, like heartbreak, like she's drowning in all the fragmentation. But glance a little deeper. Her tears don't, typically, appear after kindness or resolution. They appear immediately after. Someone else has the courage to speak their truth. Christine leaves Robyn's crying. Janelle confronts Kody, tears again. Meri attempts to reclaim a sliver of her voice. Breakdown time. But here's the twist. Those tears don't come with responsibility. They come with guilt. They draw attention. They deflect attention. Robyn doesn't take ownership of her part in the breakdown. She sucks up the spotlight and quietly redefines as herself as the one, keeping it all together. When in actuality, she's the one who profited most from it all falling apart. And let's get real about favoritism, because the fans. Oh, we saw it. From the time Robyn came into the family. She wasn't merely another wife. She was the wife. Kody spent more time at her residence, paid her more attention, more assistance. He even formally divorced Meri, his first wife, to adopt Robyn's children. That wasn't discreet, that was a message. And the other wives weren't guessing. They were experiencing it. Remember that scene, maybe one of the most telling moments in the entire series, when the family was discussing finances? Janelle calmly pointed out that she had no property in her name, 0 assets. Meanwhile, Robyn was sitting comfortably in the biggest house, the one with top-level security paid for in part by family money. And when that came up, Robyn didn't say, "You're right, let's make this fair." Nope, she became defensive. Suddenly, it was all about her sacrifices, her struggles, her victimhood. But come on, who's struggling from $1 million house? And remember, the house rules debacle during Robyn's were more strict. Kody picked up on her cue. The other wives, they got pushed aside, cut out. Some, such as Janelle, went weeks without seeing the kids at all. And Robyn, she played it like she was just looking out for the family. But the fans aren't fooled. She wasn't only guarding health, she was guarding her access to Kody. And if that required emotionally shutting off the other wives, fine. It's this subtle control that gets people crazy, because Robyn doesn't yell. She doesn't have tantrums like Kody. She doesn't give orders. She whispers. She employs soft voices, sad eyes, and subtle changes. But the outcome is the same. The other women are silenced, and she stays center stage. And the cherry on top, she's always confused, always perplexed. I just don't understand why they don't talk to him. I don't get why. There's so much tension. Really, Robyn? You don't understand why Christine might feel pushed aside when she hadn't had intimacy with her husband in a decade, while you're living in a palace with a fully present man. You don't understand why Janelle, who was so generous financially, feels robbed to leave with nothing. The reality is, Robyn has become the face of everything. Viewers resent about the show's imbalance of power. But still, she insists on being the innocent bystander. I just want the family together. Again. But it's difficult to imagine that when you never lost anything. You had Kody, you had the house, you had the emotional support. The rest of the women had to clean up after, and here's the actual kicker, Robyn insists. I never wanted to be the favorite. But what we actually see on TLC, not the same story. She's involved in every group decision. She overshadows confessionals. And when the other wives are wounded, she's seldom the comforter. She's not repairing the wounds. She's trying to stay spotless while the rest of the family bleeds. She stays silent. Then tears up later in a solo interview, making it all about how she feels. But fans aren't stupid. We've watched the show. We've seen the moments like when Maddie was getting married and suddenly Robyn positioned herself as the voice of reason, narrating the day like she'd raised Maddie from birth. Reality check Robyn came aboard when Maddie was already a middle school student, or when Robyn said she wanted family closeness only to leave out the other children from her dining room during mealtime. The inconsistency nonstop. And what hurts most is this. For years on end, the other wife sat silent to avoid conflict. Christine bit her tongue. Janelle held back. Even Meri, despite the catfishing scandal and years of emotional abandonment, still attempted to keep the family intact. Meanwhile, Robyn continued playing the misunderstood saint, never in the wrong, always the victim. But viewers, we recall the timeline. We recall the Vegas years, the Christmas rentals, the breakdowns, and we recall who always emerged victorious even as the rest of the family fell apart. Robyn might think she's getting away with the innocent act, but her comfort in a house constructed on other women's tears is deafening. Her crying doesn't disguise it, it emphasizes it. Because whether she acknowledges it or not, her position in the family was never equal. It was guarded, privileged, and preserved, while the others had to sacrifice, remain silent, and accept less. That is why fans are angry. This isn't all about hurt pride. It's about justice. It's about honesty. It's about seeing tough, competent women such as Christine and Janelle treated like issues, while Robyn was depicted as the glue that held the family together, when actually she was a part of the break. And now let's discuss. Someone who never screamed, never cried for attention, never acted the victim. Let's discuss Janelle. For years, she was the quiet presence in the shadows. Not the loudest, not the neediest, just consistent, rational, strong. But there's the bitter truth. Being strong did not work. It's gut-wrenching to know that Janelle contributed more financially to the Brown family than nearly anybody, and took nothing for herself. That's not drama, that's not gossip. That's what she said herself in person. She gave and gave and gave. And when it was her time toppling for her own future, there was nothing there. What makes it worse, Janelle never asked for much. She didn't demand grand romantic speeches or attention all the time. In Kody's own words, she was his buddy wife, and he said it like it was a badge of honor. But what did that really mean She raised the kids, she handled the finances, she maintained the peace. But in her heart, was she ever truly being regarded as an equal partner, or was she simply the practical one? The ain't, who wouldn't make a fuss. And that's the tragedy. Janelle didn't make scenes. She bore burdens, she dodged them, and that made it simpler for Kody. To overlook the cracks in their relationship, there were no blow-up arguments, no meltdowns at the dinner table. So he didn't have to contend with her needs because she never shoved them in his face. But just because she was quiet doesn't mean she wasn't in pain. You could see it written all over her face in those later seasons. Then the catfishing scandal, that moment redefined everything. And yes, it was ugly. Yes, it was embarrassing. But let's really examine what occurred. Meri was famished for attention, for love, for being seen. And then someone she believed existed finally made her feel like she mattered. And when the truth did come out, rather than be greeted with pity or even with curiosity, she was punished, emotionally ostracized.
I think that he wants to work it out with her. He does. He goes through days where he's frustrated, but then other days he's like, yeah.
Kody effectively washed his hands of the marriage from then on. On camera, off camera, same cold reaction. He flat out told Meri there was no romantic relationship any longer, that he wasn't interested. And yet she remained Charmaine. That's what made it so difficult to watch her, because she just continued to show up for a family that had clearly stopped showing up for her, and yet she smiled about it. She endured the road trips. She kept her mouth shut. She supported the family's big announcements even when she wasn't part of the inner circle anymore. You'd see her on the couch sitting inches from Kody. Yet the emotional gap between them was miles wide. And through all of that, what confused people, what frustrated some fans, was her loyalty. Why keep defending a man who openly rejected you? Why stay loyal to a family that sidelined you? But that's the thing with Meri. Her allegiance wasn't only to Kody. It wasn't even completely to the other wives. It was to the vision of the family, the ideal, the purpose. She believed they were all working towards together, the unity dream that by the time she was prepared to leave barely existed. And then came Christine's fresh start hair affair with David, her wedding, her joy. And this is what astonished everyone. Meri stood by her wholeheartedly, openly, sincerely, even afterwards. Even after being frozen out of Christine's wedding. Even after all the tension and embarrassment, Meri still arrived with warm words and actual grace. No passive-aggressive, no false smiles, just a plain, grown-up, almost tragic kind of support. And that says all you need to know about who Meri is today. She's been through the fire. She's been humiliated, ignored, isolated, and still emerged from it with enough strength to cheer for someone else's happiness. But you can't help but notice how long she lingered, how long she waited for something to change, how she clung to the embers of a relationship that Kody had already buried. At one time, she said to the cameras that she still held out hope that something might change that. Perhaps they could rebuild, and Kody didn't even attempt to conceal his lack of interest. He told her coldly, clearly, that he didn't see it happening. So why didn't Meri leave earlier? It's the question that fans repeatedly asked, but perhaps the answer is easier than we believe. Meri wasn't grasping Kody the male. She was grasping Meri, the wife Meri, the first. Meri, the mother of Leon, the woman who began this entire family and did not want to be the first to leave it. That identity was important. To her, being the first wife, the one who agreed to the entire lifestyle before it was ever a television show, before the chaos, before the spotlight. Leaving Kody wasn't about losing a man. It was about losing Therrell she had constructed her life around. No matter how much pain was involved, that loss wasn't easy. But when she actually did leave, when she actually said she was finished, it wasn't bitter. It wasn't a scream. It was soft, considerate, and honest. She didn't have to blow up. She didn't have to throw Kody under the bus. She just looked around, saw what was available, and determined her future was worth better than leftovers. And that choice, that silent last step out the door that was her power move, after all those years of being excluded, spoken, over, misheard, and turned into the scapegoat for everything from jealousy to drama. Meri reclaimed her voice, not by screaming, but by walking away without Kody's approval. Her tale is not yet complete. And for real, I hope the next installment of her life doesn't involve plural marriage. She's suffered enough, she's given enough, and at least she should have peace. True peace, the kind she never knew in that family. So ultimately, perhaps Meri's loyalty was not weakness. Perhaps it was endurance. Perhaps it was love. Perhaps it was pain. Perhaps it was all of that packaged in one. But it's obvious. Now she was loyal to a concept. Not to the man who lost interest in her. Not to the machine that ground her up, but to the family she believed they all had a consensus to create, especially when Kody began backing away into Robyn's fear-making choices on his own, hardly consulting her in anything important, and yet she persisted. She persisted. She attended strained conversations. She kept saying, "We need to have these discussions." But Kody simply checked out anytime she mentioned the necessity of fairness, of clarity. He angled it into conflict. And then came the turning point. That gut-wrenching moment when Janelle looked straight into the camera and said, "I don't know if I even care if he comes back." Not screamed, not sobbed, merely said. And the impact of those words struck like a freight train. This was not a woman surrendering. This was a woman awakening for the first time. And the contrast, she didn't crave vengeance. She craved peace. And as Kody spun placing blame, pointing fingers, Christine Cohen won, but himself, Janelle remained tranquil. She allowed the quiet to have its way. She ceased to pursue him, and in all honesty, that was the boldest thing she ever said. Let's not ignore the financial aspect. Either this is where it really gets whack. We now know Janelle didn't have a house when she broke up with Kody. She was in an RV at one time, attempting to get by on land she considered to be a family investment. Meanwhile, Robyn had a house paid off in full. Meri had a rental. Christine had invested in a house she purchased for herself and Janelle. She had property with nothing built on it and a whole lot of broken promises. The anger wasn't just about the money. It was about being lied to. Janelle was assured that all of this was family property, that the money she was investing would be for everyone. But when she needed to know, when she asked, "What's mine?" she received shrugs. She received evasion. She received gaslighting. She even blurted one time that the family structure did not soothe her anymore. And that right there, that's the most blunt description of her path. It ceased functioning. It ceased to be equitable. And when she attempted to navigate a way to remain in the system and continue to hold until her dignity, it became apparent. There was not room for her dignity in that household. So she departed. Now to the question again. Did Janelle ever feel equal? The answer, I believe, is number. Not exactly. Perhaps she assumed she did. Perhaps she assumed she believed firmly enough in plural marriage to try to convince herself that it was functioning. But once the veneer was removed, it became apparent she had way more than her fair share. Kody, on the other hand, employed that buddy relationship as a reason, not to develop the emotional bond. And when their relationship started to crumble, he portrayed Janelle as aloof, chilly, too independent. But come on, he loved that independence when it translated into her not needing him for very much. He just didn't love it when it translated into her being able to actually walk away. And walk away she did. Not with fireworks, not with a bang, but with quiet determination. And somehow that was even stronger than Christine's departure, because Janelle had worked so hard to avoid the drama, to be the stable one. And when she finally spoke up, it wasn't out of bitterness, it was out of self-respect. That's why so many viewers relate to Janelle. She's not flashy. She's not dramatic. She's real. She's the one who attempted to keep everything together while being ignored, and when it became too much to bear, she didn't seek sympathy. She packed her bags and began anew. So yes, she might have gotten the least in material possessions, but emotionally, spiritually, she gained the most. Because Janelle's quiet rebellion wasn't about destruction. It was about survival. It was about finally choosing herself, even if it meant beginning again. If anyone in this whole drama understands what it's like to be both deeply committed and painfully alone at the same time, it is Meri, the initial wife, the one who began it all with Kody, and somehow the one who became the most isolated. Meri's tale is convoluted. She wasn't flawless, none of them were, but if you trace it back to the start, you will observe that she was more devoted to the dream than anyone else. She was a firm believer in plural marriage, in family cohesion, in creating something greater than herself. But along the way, that dream abandoned her. Kody was different with Meri than he was with the others initially. Their bond did appear to be real. Sincere even, but soon enough the distance crept in. Emotional neglect, quiet rejection. That chill that began to creep until it became their new normal. It wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive. It was simply a slow freeze, and Meri remained within it, wishing that things would thaw. They never did. As we close out the Brown family saga, it's impossible to miss the powerful changes occurring before our very eyes. It's been a road of long, hard suffering for Christine, Janelle, and even Meri. But the loveliness of their arcs now is that they're free from being defined by Kody's own interpretation of their lives. They're discovering peace and power on their own terms. Christine, for instance, has fully lived her freedom in ways that cannot be denied. She's no longer merely the third wife in a set of women attempting to make it work. She's Christine, the woman who broke free from a bad relationship and took charge of her own happiness. Since the day she left Kody, it was apparent that she wasn't merely deciding to walk away from a man. She was deciding to walk towards herself. And let's discuss the symbolism, because in reality, TV symbolism says it all. When Christine packed up and moved out, it wasn't simply about going out the door, it was about breaking free from an old Christine who had been drowning under Kody's dictatorship. The wedding ring came off. Kody's weight was finally lifted from her shoulders, and she's been radiant ever since she's been posting on social media flaunting her new life, her vacations, her children, her new boyfriend. And every post is a narrative of restoring her value one day at a time.